Hello there, people of the internet. I got a comment, I can't quite remember who it was from, but they had told me that one of their local gun stores ended up getting, I think it was like 5 or 6 IO AK-47s in stock that they wanted to sell to people who didn't know that they were most likely to have problems. So if you don't know, the IO AK, do I have my AK anywhere around here? The IO AK, this is a RH-10. This is a Romanian AK, so it's not a IO AK. The IO AK had some issues back whenever it was being made. It has since been discontinued. It's no longer being manufactured, but it had some problems back whenever it was being made. The most common problem with those AKs was that the metal was extraordinarily soft on them, so the internal hammer would mushroom and it would have difficulties. The little tang on the back of our charging handle and bolt carrier group here, like if you ever take apart an AK, which I don't think I'm allowed to do on YouTube anymore, there's a little tang on the back of the bolt carrier group. That right there also had issues with mushrooming, and those were just because the metals were super soft. Up here we have a little pin, and this pin, for all intents and purposes, like simplistically speaking, keeps the barrel in place and keeps the AK from having any sort of headspace issues. That pin was also way too soft than what it was supposed to be, and so as a result, after you fire, I got about 2,500 rounds through mine before I started having some problems. After you fire a pretty insignificant amount of ammunition through those IO AKs, the headspace starts to walk, and you start to have some issues. If headspace walks too much, then you might have some problems, like blow up your gun level of problems. And that's a really, really, really bad thing. And that's not something that new guys know to watch out for. I know they also had problems with their rivets just because they were soft metal. Like, the AKs from them just had problems. I actually have an inner ordnance AK that I rebuilt from a Romanian parts kit, so the internals of it are much better than what IO originally sold them with. But this was a really good example of how the people who work at the gun shop are not always your friend. Like, if someone's working at a gun store, then they're running a business. They're out there to make money, and there's some awesome people out there in the industry. Like, this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. I love meeting people out there that love these things wholeheartedly like I do. I am just so overwhelmingly passionate about basically all of these things, the history, the different calibers, why they exist. Like, things like this right here are what shaped the modern world that we live in. Like, for example, I got a French Chassepot rifle back there, and that went up against the Dry Sea, and if the French had anything different other than the Chassepot, then maybe something would have turned out different. Or maybe if they didn't go against the Dry Sea, I can't quite remember the history behind this right here, then maybe the Chassepot wouldn't even exist. Bottom line, small arms like this, these are substantial in terms of why things happened in the world and why the world is the way that it is. 30-06 wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for 7mm Mauser. We wouldn't have the 1903 Springfield if we didn't go up against the Spanish in the Spanish-American War with our Krag Jorgensen rifles. We might still honestly have had updated Krag Jorgensen rifles. Maybe the 308 would have been like a shortened version of the Krag Jorgensen 3040. I don't know, but like, there's just no way to really tell. But by a huge margin, there's a lot of people out there that are so passionate around so many different things, and actually I really like that idea. I'm gonna have to write that down. Like, what ifs in terms of firearms technology, and I think what if 3040 Krag was always the thing and 30-06 never existed. I feel like that would be a really cool video, but we'll get in on that later. But then there's people that are out there to make as much money as possible, and they don't care who they screw over or how to do it. Like a really good example, somewhere here I have my Mosin Nagant 9130. These were available very cheap back in the day for like 90 bucks. Like you could get these for under 100 bucks all day every day. And there's tons of people out there who bought a lot of them, mostly because they were cheap. But nowadays they're scalping prices like way beyond what the market value is for these things. Like normally nowadays you can find one of these for 400 to 500 bucks, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on condition and whatnot. But there's people out there, like especially at gun shows, dude, who will ask just an exorbitant amount of money. Seeing one of these go for $700, $800, $900 at a gun show is just insane. And there's people who walk these gun shows who don't know any better, and the guys selling them, they do know better, but they're like, hey, this young punk over here wants a Mosin because he saw it in Call of Duty, so I'm gonna sell him this one for $1,000, even though I got it 10 years ago for 90 bucks. Like, people just take advantage of people who don't know, and they do it so well. As a matter of fact, I think I told this story on the YouTube channel before. Do I have one sitting around me? I do not. I saw somebody go into my local gun store not too terribly long ago, and they bought a gun that was on consignment that everyone was thinking it was going to sit there forever. But it was an SKS. It was just a Yugoslavian SKS. Nothing real special about it. It was in half decent shape. But the guy paid $1,000 for this SKS on consignment just because he didn't know any better. That's what the gun was worth to him, but he could have literally gone online and picked one up, even nowadays, for like $500-600 maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. Saved a ton of money. But it was just somebody who probably did know better, who wanted to go out and to take advantage of somebody who is just ignorant. And I see this all the time in the gun world. Like, all the time. I have seen a tremendous amount of people sell, I got it over here, sell Turkish 8mm Mauser ammo, and they'll know that it's super hot and spicy ammo, but they'll have it out there on the shelf, just, hey, 8mm Mauser ammo, 155 grain, and somebody coming through who doesn't know, hey, maybe this is surplus ammo, maybe I should do some research on what this actually is. They pick it up. I actually know a guy who was a little ignorant as to what it is that he was actually buying to put through his rifle, and it did damage his gun. And that's just because his gun was not designed for the pressures that was generated by these cartridges. His ignorance and the gun shop's purposeful exploitation of that ignorance was a really good example of how that guy managed to get his gun broke. Or all the time I see online people selling ammunition, like modern produced ammo is non-corrosive, and then I'll take it and I'll shoot it, and I'll be like, alright, cool, great, and I'll go home and it'll be like, oh, yeah, well, turns out this stuff is corrosive because it's just like old stock, I don't know, what's really coming to mind right now is 8mm Mauser ammo that's been like re-lacquered over, and it turns out that it still is very corrosive because the primers are corrosive because they're old stock 50-year-old primers. But you know what? We call it non-corrosive, so screw you, I guess. I know Fed Arms 8mm Mauser, they originally said that they were non-corrosive, and I took out my Car 98 to go shoot it. And it ran well in that, but I assumed it was non-corrosive because they said it was non-corrosive. And turns out, 3 or 4 days later, my Car 98 barrel was all frosted, and now it's a 6 MOA gun, and there's just nothing that I can do about that. Here's another really good example. These guys actually did a really good job with this, considering what it is that they had to work with. This is a Moss 4956 that is in pretty gosh darn good shape. I won't lie, I really like this rifle, especially for the price point that I got it at. But this was a refurbished rifle from James River Armory. And the big problem with this gun is, although the outside looks great, and this is what people look at whenever they're buying one of these, the inside wasn't cleaned. These right here were part of the Ethiopian batch that came into RTI. And James River Armory, they went ahead and they refurbished the outside of the gun to make it just absolutely beautiful. But the inside of the guns were just rotting crap. They had so much debris and whatnot inside of them, so much rust and gunk and funk and pitting, and that wasn't advertised. Like, reviewers like me and, like, what's another one that did a review on one of these? Readiness Reviews. He made a review on one of these as well, and in both instances, they were not cleaned on the inside. And I've talked to a couple of people who have gotten these guns, these exact guns, and again, they were not cleaned on the inside. And if you don't know any better, then you just don't know any better. And you're going to be getting this gun, who, although on the outside, at first face value, looks fantastic, on the inside, it might be a little bit dirty and disgusting. And I really wish that James River Armory went through the inside of the gun as well to clean up some of the funk that was on the inside. Now I understand, because they had a lot of guns that they had to go through and whatnot, it just didn't make sense to do all that, but hopefully you guys can understand what it is that I'm getting at here, because they made the gun look beautiful, and people were thinking that they were going to get a beautifully refurbished gun. And then the stocks are loose whenever they come in. My stock was loose. Basically, all the stocks are loose, so you got to break the gun down and tighten up the stock. And you also got to clean out all the internals and whatnot. And you might get one that has a shot-out bore, for all you know. But these are just a couple of examples on people in the market taking advantage of other people's lack of knowledge or lack of understanding. And I really don't like that. There's a lot of really amazing people out there that are wholeheartedly interested in these sorts of things, and they're happy to teach people. But there's just going to be people out there that are out there taking advantage of whatever it is that they can. And we got to keep an eye out for that, call people out on that, and help the people that are being taken advantage of. We got to help them learn whatever it is, like whatever the situation calls for. We got to help them learn what it is to look for their particular firearm. So that's all I have to say today. I think I got my message across. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.